Do I remember? Welcome to Coffee with Pastor B.
What if I were the one to tell you that the fight's already been won? Well, I think your day's about to get better. What if I were the one to tell you that the work's already been done? It's not good news, it's the best news ever.
Do I remember? There's many times in my life when I don't remember, especially when my wife asks me to do something. I'm just kidding. Do you remember? Do I remember? Do I remember all that God has done for me? Do I remember in my times of worry, my times of strife, when I've cried out and I've prayed to Him, do I remember that He rescues me? That He has pulled me from the fire and the flames? You know, so often we cry out to the Lord and we ask Him to rescue us, and He does, and then we forget. And we roll right back into what we were doing. You know, it's exactly what was going on in Judges and Gideon's time, who was also known as Jerubbaal. And in this, he rescued the people, and they forgot. God rescued the people through him, and they forgot. Judges 8 verse 34, that's exactly what he says. Let me read it for you. And thus the sons of Israel did not remember their Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of their enemies on every side. How often are we delivered by God and we forget? Gideon, also known as Jerubbaal, served the Lord. And sometimes he did so needing affirmation. If we remember the fleece, he put the fleece outside, and if it was wet, then he would trust in God. And then he flipped it over, so it was wet on the bottom, they'd trust in God. And he did this 2 or 3 times, and God obliged his doubt and made sure Gideon was confident in what he was doing. And Gideon remembered. And sometimes God would give him the affirmation without him asking. Before he went down against the Amalekites, and he went down, and he was able to listen at the camp, and God gave him confidence to conquer the hills in front of him. And he served the Lord. With 300 men, he took the Amalekites and the Midianites by the power of God. And he trusted in God, and he routed over 120,000. With 300 men, they destroyed an army, and he remembered, and he served the Lord. But the people forgot, and the people played the harlot against God, and they served other gods, and they turned from the ways of the Lord, and they forgot in their good times that it was the Lord who provided their rest and their peace. In my life, do I forget that the Lord provides my rest and my peace? You know, oftentimes people say, it's hard to rejoice in the Lord in the tough times. No, oftentimes we cry out to the Lord. That's when we hit our knees. It's when we call upon Him, and He answers us. It's in the good times when we forget all that God has done that we must be careful to remember what He has done. We must remember that He has rescued us. We must remember that He has saved us from the fiery pit of hell. We must remember that His grace and His mercies are with us always, so that whether in the good times or whether in the tough times, I can rejoice in the Lord because I remember. I remember when I was down and out and He rescued me. I remembered when I was hurting and He comforted me. I remembered when I had hard times and He delivered me. Didn't always make it better immediately, but He delivered me through with a huge blessing on the other side. When we remember, our minds, our spirits, and our heads and our hearts are set on the things above, and everything else just kind of clicks into place. When we remember what God has done for us, the power of God resides within us, that we too can conquer the armies of darkness in front of us, that we too can destroy the mountains, that we too can do the impossible if we just would but remember God and all that He has done and rejoice in Him. Thanks for joining me for just a sip this morning and a look at the Word. God bless y'all.